Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the tone of my bass cover for Mr. Moustache by Nirvana. So here we have Cubase, 2 tracks. Yellow one is Nirvana, blue one is me. As with all my bass covers on the studio track by the artist, what I did here on the channel settings, on the equalizer, I added a bit of a low cut around about the 200 hertz mark. Just to take away some of the low end that's already in the track so that my bass that I'm adding doesn't have to compete with extra low end. I'll just demonstrate what that's doing. So let's listen to just the Nirvana studio track by itself without the low cut filter activated, and I'll sort of turn it on and off, and you might need headphones to kind of pick up the difference here because it is, I'd say, fairly subtle, but let's give that a go. So yeah, like I said, it's subtle, but it is doing something there. So then onto my bass track. Let's listen to a little bit of that on its own. Such a cool riff, that, isn't it? So yeah, no plugins used in Cubase. This is all basically coming from my pedal board. And although you can kind of see a gap in the, I guess, the audio file, I did record this whole thing in one take. I basically just, you can see it sort of take number five. I just cut the gap out here where it's kind of, you know, I think it's just guitar at that point near the end before the outro section. So I just chopped that out just in case there was any kind of background noise coming from the drive pedals on my pedal board. I just chopped it out and got rid of it. And then the only other thing that's going on in Cubase is on the main sort of, you know, stereo out, we've got a maximizer, just to bring up a few details, make things a little bit more exciting. But yeah, that's basically what's going on in Cubase. And then I recorded that cover on my Warwick Corvette bass. I had it in passive mode and the pickup blend right down the middle, so both pickups. Strings on that bass, Elixir nickel strings, gauge 105 to 45. They've been on there ages. Those strings do last a long time, but I don't know, I'm probably due a change on those relatively soon. And then I'm playing with a pick on that one. And some of you may have seen the video I made a couple of years ago about, you know, discovering my favourite pick. Well, that's changed now. I found a new favourite pick. So I previously used to really like these things. So it's a Dunlop Sharp 0.73mm Tortex pick. I really enjoyed that kind of sharp point and kind of the flexibility of the 0.73. But prior to using these, I did use kind of the bigger triangle shapes from Dunlop. And then I've recently discovered these things. So these are Clayton picks. They're sort of Clayton sharp triangles. So, you know, very similar sharp tip to the Dunlop sharp picks. But you got that bigger triangle shape, so there's a bit more surface area to hold on to, which I quite enjoyed. And you know, these sort of 3-sided symmetrical picks, they just last longer because you've got three points instead of one. This is 0.8mm, slightly higher gauge than the 0.73 Dunlop pick, but I feel like this is slightly more flexible when I kind of compare them, like in my grip like that. Even more recently, I've tried the 1mm version of the same pick. But yeah, the 0.81 is where it's at for me. I really like this for electric guitar, but the 0.8mm on bass, I think, is really nice. So yeah, check out Clayton picks if you haven't already. They're pretty good. And then, you know, pedal board is the next thing I suppose to explore. So I took a picture of my pedal board after recording the song. And let's run you through the signal chain. So let's get a few little colourful pens out, shall we? If this ever loads. There we go. So Bass goes into the tuner, into the compressor. Ratio is set to 4 on there. Then we go into the Boss LS2, and then from there we got 2 parallel signals. So let's get some different color pens. Let's get a green one for channel A. So channel A goes into the wah, not used on this track, and then into the TS9 Mini. That was engaged. You can see the overdrive. It's pointing to the O of the word overdrive. So I guess that's, roughly 11 o'clock on the clock face. From there, it goes back to the LS2. So TS9 Mini, I previously used the Rat in this position. Lots of pedals that aren't intended for bass will draw out some low end. So that's where channel B comes in, because channel B is just a bit of a low end boost from the Ibanez Pentatone EQ. So that's a fully parametric 5-band EQ pedal. I've got a separate video on my channel of just, a loop going through that and playing with all the controls, no talking. So if you're interested in parametric EQs on a bit more of affordable budget, definitely check that out. So we've got our slightly driven sound with our, low end boost combined there in parallel, and then out of the LS2 we go into the flanger, which I didn't use on this one, then into a noise gate, which I did use on this track. That's a relatively new pedal for me, just to keep the noise down. And then from there we go into the Tech 21 Sounds Amp VT Bass DI. So the EQ is relatively flat, maybe the tiniest cut on the mid, tiniest cut on the treble, a little bit of a boost on the bass, slightly higher on the drive than I normally set it. I normally set the Sounds Amp quite clean in this signal chain, but on this one I did give it a little bit more grit on the Sounds Amp. And the cab sim is engaged, and then we're going XLR out of there into my interface. So I think that's pretty much everything really for how I got the tone in this Nirvana bass cover. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you're enjoying these videos where I'm breaking down the tones. And I'll see you in the next video.